Welcome back to The Rundown. Well, with last week's closing of party lists, the campaign for Israel's election day on March 23rd, the fourth round of voting within 2 years is now in full swing. But some things are different this time around, including the introduction of a new party called New Hope, founded by former Likud Minister Gideon Saar. Well, with me in studio is one of its parliamentary candidates, Dayan, a former spokesperson for the Council of Settlements in Judea and Samaria, and Israel's former consul general in New York. Now, this series of political discussions is a joint venture of I-24 News and Yisrael Hayom, and also joining us is the media outlet's diplomatic correspondent, Ariel Kahana. Dani, thanks for joining us here in the studio. Let me ask you, when New Hope debuted, you could say it made a big splash. Some polls showed it going up 18, 19 seats. Some had it within 4 or 5 seats of Likud. The most recent polls show a drop for New Hope down to 14 seats, while the Likud has risen. Why do you think that's happened, and how do you think the party can reverse that trend?
It's very natural that happened. It always offers any new star in the skies of Israeli politics. It happens in the polls. But I have no doubt that finally in the last weeks, probably even in the last days of the election, it will come to a race between Netanyahu and Saar. Why? Because Gideon Saar is the only candidate that has a chance to win, to replace Prime Minister Netanyahu. The majority of the Israeli electorate is center-right. So only a candidate that comes from the center-right is able to form a coalition that can replace that of Prime Minister Netanyahu. That is very clear. Likud, Haredi parties, Smotrich, the right with Smotrich and Ben Gvir, and probably even Mansour Abbas with Bennett. If they get more than 61, Prime Minister Netanyahu will be re-elected Prime Minister. If they don't, Gideon Saar is the only one that can form an alternative coalition, and therefore when people understand that this is the real race, Netanyahu versus Saar, we will see also that reflected in the polls.
But Dani, why someone like you, who came from the right, you used to be the chairman of the Yesha Council, that cooperated with Bennett, with Smotrich, and of course with Netanyahu himself, who appointed you as a consul general to New York. So why someone like you won't establish a government with Netanyahu and prefer someone like Yair Lapid or even Merav Michaeli from the left? You are a right-wing person.
Because, Ariel, in my last months in New York, and even more so after I returned from New York, I felt so disillusioned and so really, I want to use a harsh word, but I felt that I cannot, it's enough. Fed up. 13 years of Prime Minister Netanyahu.
But why?
I will explain why, for 2 reasons. The first one is the mismanagement. We see this in the corona crisis. But the second one probably is even more important. The toxic discourse, the divisive discourse, the language that is used by Netanyahu and his cohorts, his supporters within Likud, within the parliament and outside the parliament. That is not the Hadar, the Jabotinsky, the Jabotinsky legacy, the Menachem Begin legacy, the Yitzhak Shamir legacy that I'm used to. And it's no surprise, by the way, that the son of Menachem Begin, the granddaughter of Yitzhak Shamir, are with us in that situation.
I want to clarify something, because you only answered to Ariel why you left the Likud and joined the New Hope Party. You're not actually answering why the New Hope Party wouldn't join in a government headed by Netanyahu. Because
we think that the continuation of those 13 years by Netanyahu is bad for the country. It's like if you ask Joe Biden if he would be a member of the cabinet of Donald Trump had he won the elections. Of course not. New Hope was formed because we got to the conclusion that 13 years is too much for Netanyahu to be prime minister, and we will not contribute to extend that period.
You might come to a junction after the elections, the day after, maybe you personally, and of course your party will have to choose between more years to the 13 years Prime Minister, Netanyahu, or fifth elections? What would you prefer?
No, I don't think that will be the case. I see no reason why will that be the case. I think, look, it's very clear. If Netanyahu with Bennett and the Haredi parties and Ben Gvir and Smotrich and probably the Arab list of Mansour Abbas, the Islamist list of Mansour Abbas, have 61 votes, he will form a government. But if he doesn't, we will form the government.
But I want to understand that. There is a new poll out from Channel 12, Likud getting 28 seats, Yesh Atid 18, New Hope at 13 seats. So if they don't form that 61 seats, explain to me what government Gideon Saar will form that will be, and your definition, a center-right government.
First, I didn't say it will be a unity government. It will
I understand. Okay.
We came to heal the society of Israel. Look, in my opinion, that's right what Arik said. I didn't change my ideological positions. I live in Samaria for more than 30 years. I was the chairman of Yesha, and I didn't change one iota in my ideology. But you have to understand, today, in my view, the most important division that exists in Israel, in the Israeli society, is not between the so-called right or left. It's not about between religious and secular. It's not about Ashkenazi and Mizrahim. It's not even about Jewish and Arabs. It's about the dividers and the healers. And I want to be in the part of the healers. I want to be in the part that recreates the cohesion. Would
that include the labor of Mirav Michaeli or Meretz?
Meretz already announced that they will not be a part of our coalition. I'm sure that Meretz also will cross the electoral threshold.
So you're going to have the society with the Labour Party has a candidate that so horrible things I don't want to repeat about the Holocaust. Is such a lady will accuse the society and not Bennett or Netanyahu?
That lady that you refer to, Ibtissam Marana, will not be a Knesset member. She's relegated to a low slot in the list, and if she represents the Labour Party, then the Labour Party will not be able to be part of our coalition. But
she chose it, right?
Yeah, but
she's number 7. Some polls have shown that she would enter.
We came to create a new atmosphere in Israel. The toxic atmosphere about everything is about we and them. No,
but
it comes about us.
Okay, but the toxic atmosphere comes only from Netanyahu. It doesn't come from his rivals on the left side?
Look, it doesn't come from Gideon Saar for sure. And that's the reason I want Gideon Saar to be Prime Minister. I didn't say that Ibtissam Marane will be our candidate for Prime Minister. No. And not Yair Golan. But yes, I will say again, there are two types of leadership today in Israel, the divisive and the cohesive. And Netanyahu and Yair Golan choose divisive language, and Gideon Saar chose the opposite. And that is the reason I want him to be Prime Minister.
Now,
all Israelis.
Prime Minister Netanyahu saying today on Israel's Channel 20 he would not accept another rotation government. Would Gideon Saar accept a rotation government either with Prime Minister Netanyahu or with some of these other party leaders that are the healers that you mentioned, especially Yair Lapid?
Of course not with Prime Minister Netanyahu, because, we know that he's not a man of his word. So,
well, what about with Yair Lapid?
We are not now forming a government. We need.
I understand that. I'm trying to see what what your red markers are.
We are running to elect Gideon Saar as the Prime Minister of Israel for the next 4 years.
Again, though, I'm just trying to find, you still have to form a government. We understand that. And what are your guidelines for forming the government?
Every party that supports the existence of Israel as a democratic and Jewish state can be a partner in our government. Let me remind you that all those parties that my friend Ariel Kahana is surprised that probably we will cooperate with, were all of them members in Netanyahu's coalition. Let me remind you that Yair Lapid was the finance minister of Netanyahu. Avi Nissan-Koren was justice minister of Netanyahu, under Netanyahu. Tzipi Livni was the justice minister, and even the head of the negotiating team with the Palestinians.
So what's the difference between you and him? If you're going to repeat what he's doing, what's the difference between you and him?
I am not saying that we are going to repeat what he's doing, but we are going to replace the toxic way and the mismanagement of this government. We see this these days. Look, the mismanagement. Today was a microcosm of what is happening in Israel. On one hand, the mismanagement, the lack of decision-making process in the most vital things. People simply do not know what will happen with them and their children tomorrow. And on the other hand, we see also the toxic language. Netanyahu blaming everyone but himself. You know, Netanyahu said yesterday that those that spread fake news are responsible for the fact that schools cannot be open, etc., etc.
Right.
Some Rabbi Asherov, that no one knows who he is the responsible, and not Benjamin Netanyahu. That is outrageous. That is fake news, that is the political culture, the political hygiene that we want to reap.
We have the viewers here for I-24 all around the world. They know that Israel is the only country with 1/3 of the population that got the vaccine already. So no doubt Netanyahu, actually every government around the world made mistake during this coronavirus, but still he made an unbelievable succeed. Everybody is saying it. So okay, you blame him for what you blame, but can you appreciate him for what he did like no other leader in the world did?
Sure. Look, I follow every single day the interactive table, the interactive map of the New York Times about the coronavirus. Today, Israel per capita is second in the world in infections after Montenegro. Now, it's true that the vaccines are a great achievement of Netanyahu and the state of Israel. But, you know, is like saying that the fact that in the Yom Kippur War we eventually crossed the Suez Canal and we got an aerial bridge of arms from the United States, it doesn't mean that Golda Meir didn't make a huge mistake and a huge error, to which a National Commission of Inquiry was established, and finally she left politics. So the fact that he eventually did something good, that we have to see what are the results, doesn't mean that he didn't mismanage the crisis during a year, 12 months. He mismanaged this crisis tremendously, and people paid with their lives for that.
And Gideon Saar, you're convinced is going to be able to turn that around?
Look, I know Gideon Saar for more than 30 years. I know Gideon Saar actually even before he was named Saar, before he changed his name to a Hebrew name. And Gideon Saar has the intellectual capacity, the ideological backbone, the management qualities, and last but not least, the moral integrity to be Prime Minister of the State of Israel.
You left out one thing, political smarts. We'll have to see if he has that too, because whoever forms the next government is certainly going to have that. Ariel Kahana and Dani Dayan of the New Hope Party, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
On The Rundown.